Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into a deeply paradoxical piece of history regarding civil rights and systemic reform. We usually think of police corruption as the absolute enemy of justice, right? But history? Well, it rarely fits into neat little boxes.
Let's explore a seriously counterintuitive premise that is going to completely flip how you think about law, order, and marginalized communities. So, what actually happens when the very people extorting you are literally the only ones standing between you and aggressive, violent persecution?
Part 1, a corrupt kind of safety, looking at Seattle in the 1950s. To set the stage, during the 1950s and 60s, a visible LGBTQ+ community was really starting to emerge in Seattle's Pioneer Square. And this brilliantly illustrates our paradox. See, while major cities across America, places like San Francisco and New York, were violently cracking down on the community with routine, highly publicized police raids, Seattle's gay bars were left relatively alone. But as you'll see, it was for a very dark reason.
This wasn't tolerance fueled by social acceptance or progressive laws, not at all. It was a safety born entirely out of police corruption. It was known as the payoff system. Basically, some officers in the Seattle Police Department forced these institutions to pay them off. As long as the bar owners quietly paid the extortion money, the police simply looked the other way, effectively shielding the patrons from the violent raids happening in other cities.
Part 2. The price of tolerance. Buying safety.
What's truly fascinating about this era is that we can literally follow the money to see exactly what this so-called tolerance costs these business owners. Take the Golden Horseshoe, for example, which was a really popular spot at the time. The owners agreed to pay corrupt officers a flat rate of $100 every single month. And what did that buy them? It simply bought the police's promise to ignore their drag shows.
And on top of that monthly fee, it cost an extra $50 a week in bribes just to get the police to overlook same-sex dancing. I mean, in the 1960s, that was a massive amount of money to essentially just rent your basic physical safety.
So the mechanics of this system actually created this bizarre, highly dysfunctional business partnership. You've got the bar owners acting as the payers, the corrupt police as the enforcers profiting off marginalization, and the city? They were just the bystander turning a blind eye. This perverse ecosystem became so deeply entrenched that by 1965, police actually sat down and bargained with bar owners to open a brand new after-hours gay dance club. The police were practically acting as silent partners in the very vice they were sworn to stop.
Part 3. The 7-year FBI sting. A secret operation.
A system this blatantly corrupt just couldn't stay in the shadows forever. The breaking point had to come from the inside. It was a bar owner named Mock Ivor Wells who finally decided enough was enough. Taking an incredible personal and professional risk, Wells became a whistleblower, embarking on a dangerous sting operation with the FBI. And he didn't just do this for a couple of weeks. He maintained this secret cooperation for 7 long years. He kept meticulous, undeniable records of every single payment, documenting exactly which officers were involved in the extortion ring. Tracking the slow collapse of this extortion ring reveals a really tense timeline. Like we mentioned, in 1965, the system was so bold that new clubs were opening via police bargains. But by 1966, the explosive story breaks in the Seattle Times. The tension mounts for years. In 1967, reporters seeking details are literally thrown out of the police chief's office. It wasn't until the early 1970s that some of these corrupt officers were finally put on trial and convicted of receiving bribes. Ironically, when the story first broke in 1966, the media completely missed the point. Instead of focusing their outrage on the corrupt police running a mafia-style extortion racket, the Seattle Times dubbed it Seattle's homosexual problem, essentially blaming the marginalized community for simply existing in the city. It really proves just how deeply prejudiced society was at the time, and exactly why the community felt forced into these corrupt bargains in the first place. Part 4. When reform brings more danger. A look at unintended consequences. This brings us to the ultimate twist in our explainer, and man, it's a harsh lesson. Exposing the corruption actually made life far worse for the LGBTQ+ community in the short term. During the payoff era, they faced financial extortion, sure, but they largely enjoyed physical safety from violent raids. But stepping into the reform era meant honest policing. Because the laws on the books still criminalized their existence, honest policing actually meant aggressive raids, arrests, and severe harassment. The corrupt shield was suddenly gone, exposing them to the full, brutal force of the law.
The good guy reformers essentially became the antagonists. Enter the new police chief, George Tealsh. He was hired specifically to clean up the corrupt force. The problem, Tealsh had a really strong penchant for prosecuting vice crimes. Following the strict letter of the law, he instituted severe policing of gay life in Seattle. This clean, reform-minded chief created a drastically more hostile and terrifying environment than the corrupt extortionists ever did. He ruthlessly targeted the very community that had just escaped extortion.
Part 5. Mobilizing for True Equality. A Catalyst for Change. This painful, frightening backlash served as the ultimate wake-up call for permanent change. Look at the sequence. First, they lose their corrupt protection. Next, they face aggressive, by-the-book persecution from reformers. Because they could no longer just buy their safety, they hit a breaking point. They were forced to step out of the shadows, organize, and fight for genuine legal protection. The loss of their flawed safety net made political mobilization an absolute matter of survival. Tying into the broader civil rights struggles of the 1960s and 70s, local activists aligned their cause with the language of power, pride, and freedom from oppression. They demanded actual legal protections, totally rejecting the old model of bot tolerance. And guess what? It worked. The political pressure grew so intense that Mayor Wes Ullman began clashing directly with Chief Tealsh over his aggressive tactics. This mobilization culminated in a massive victory. In 1973, Seattle passed an employment non-discrimination ordinance. And the very next year, in March 1974, the aggressive police chief Tealsh was forced to resign.
The absolutely crucial takeaway from this explainer is a difficult historical truth. True safety can never be rented from a corrupt system. Even if it provides temporary shelter, a broken system will always leave you vulnerable. Real, lasting safety has to be enshrined in the law. It demands structural equality.
I'll leave you with this final thought, and it's something I want you to really ponder. Does true systemic reform always require marginalized communities to endure the painful backlash of losing their broken yet protective systems? As we look at how marginalized groups navigate the complexities of justice today, what are the modern equivalents of this paradox? Where else might people be relying on broken systems because the reformed alternative is just too dangerous right now? Keep that in mind as you look at the news today. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep asking the tough questions.